It's time for the whole 9 yards. Hello again, everyone. I'm Ralph Ventre. It's the next to last week of the FCS regular season. One good thing is that the byes are gone. All 7 Northeast Conference teams will be active throughout the season's final 2 weeks. 3 conference contests, 1 non-league matchup. Let's get right to work and talk all about Week 11 in our opening drive. Robert Morris looking for its 3rd non-conference win of the season, making the trip out to OVC member Eastern Kentucky. Now, Robert Morris tight end Matthew Gonzalez, he caught 4 touchdown passes in the Colonials' 2 out-of-league wins. Let's see if he can add to his league-leading 11 TD receptions this week against a team that is 5-4 overall, but 2 really close games against FBS teams. This will be a tough test for Robert Morris as the NEC meets the OVC, the Colonials and the Colonels, 1 o'clock Saturday Eastern Time. 3 NEC games to tackle. First, Wagner visiting Bryant. Both teams coming off NEC losses last week. For the Bulldogs, it's their Northeast Conference finale. James Perry and Bryant will close out the season against MEAC member Howard in Week 12. Now, the fact that Bryant and Wagner have already had 4 common opponents this season means that Seahawks head coach Jason Hotelling has seen his share of game film, and here's what he had to say about the Bulldogs.
Offensively, they show a lot of different looks, and they'll be tough to defend. Their defense, I think the 2 explosive guys, number 1 and number 32, but they've surrounded them with some really good talent up front, big, stout guys in the middle, guys that can run on the edges, and then their special teams is always sound. They do a number of different things. They've faked some punts. They've got a very dangerous return game, and we've seen that here with number 2, and then he also had a kick return against New Haven of 100 yards this year. So all in all, a really good football team up in Rhode Island, and excited for the week to get ready.
Now, Bryant was without quarterback Price Wilson in last week's setback to St. Francis, but Timothy Graham stepped in, making his 2nd career appearance, throwing his first 2 career touchdown passes. Now, Bryant did have the services of senior linebacker Tom Costigan, the reigning NEC Defensive Player of the Year, paces the circuit in total tackles. He's made at least 1 tackle for a loss in 7 of his last 8 games. He's really coming on strong here the last 2 weeks. 6 tackles for a loss combined in the Bulldogs' previous 2 NEC games. Now, if you tune into Front Row on Saturday, you'll see some national individual statistical leaders, one of them being Wagner senior running back Ryan Folse. He's 3rd overall in the FCS with over 1,200 rush yards, and he has earned the respect of Bryant head coach James Perry.
This Wagner football team can really play. They have one of the best players. We'll play all year long. One of the best players in all of FCS in the running back position. And they've played a lot of really close games this year, so I anticipate this Saturday will be nothing different.
Now, each team has one of the best in the country in terms of tackles for loss. Folse's teammate, Cameron Gill, a junior linebacker, 17.5 hits for loss this season. That's 5th overall in the FCS. Meanwhile, on the other side, Bryant defensive end Tomas Wright, 17 TFL. That's tied for 7th overall on the FCS national leaderboard. Wright, Gill, Costigan, Folse, plenty of reasons to watch this one. Wagner at Bryant live on NEC Front Row. Now let's head out to the Steel City where the NEC trophy will be this weekend, just in case. Now, both Sacred Heart and Duquesne control their own destiny in terms of the race for the Northeast Conference crown. All Sacred Heart needs, however, is one win on Saturday, and the Pioneers will secure the NEC's automatic bid to the FCS playoffs. Now, Duquesne, which returns home to Rooney Field for Senior Day, can thwart Sacred Heart's plans and take the wheel itself in the race for the automatic bid to the FCS championship. Now, depending on other games' results, the Dukes would need a win over Sacred Heart on Saturday, coupled with a Week 12 win over Central Connecticut to punch its ticket to the postseason. Now, Sacred Heart and Duquesne both ran wild in NEC victories last week. Sacred Heart averaged over 7 yards per carry against Robert Morris. Jordan Meacham over 140 yards rushing. Rookie Julius Chestnut more than 150 rush yards for the second week in a row. In only 120 minutes of football, Sacred Heart has rushed for more than 900 yards. Now, on the other side, the Dukes averaged 6.9 yards per carry in a Week 10 road win over Wagner. A.J. Hines continued his late-season surge, more than 200 yards from scrimmage for the third week in a row. Hines carried 33 times for 232 yards. And then Daquan Worley, a defensive back who's been taking some carries on the offensive side this year, he ran 6 times for 89 yards, becoming a nice complement to the big bruising back that is A.J. Hines. Now, we know Duquesne can run the ball. As far as stopping the run, they've done a nice job of that lately. They bottled up Ryan Folse last week, only 54 yards on 20 carries for the NEC's leading rusher. In 4 NEC games, the Dukes are allowing only 2.8 yards per carry. They have surrendered a total of 383 rush yards in 4 games. One reason for this success has been junior defensive end Mike O'Malley, 3.5 tackles for a loss in last week's win over Wagner. Can he and his mates slow down the red-hot rushing attack of Sacred Heart? Tune in to NEC Front Row and find out. This is a high-stakes battle, Sacred Heart at Duquesne. And now for our featured game of the week on ESPN3. Neither of these teams control their own destiny in terms of the race for the NEC title, but both teams are still very much alive. Central Connecticut travels to St. Francis in what will be a battle of strength versus strength. Central Connecticut sports the NEC's top-ranked offense, accounting for more than 450 yards per game. The Blue Devils average nearly 7 yards per play. They've scored 40 offensive touchdowns through the season's first 9 outings. They were on a bye last week, but in their most recent appearance, Pete Rossamondo's team ran for 396 yards in a victory over Wagner. Now, yardage like that could be hard to come by on Saturday because St. Francis owns the NEC's top-ranked total defense and scoring defense. The Red Flash limiting the opposition to only 4.6 yards per play, holding opponents to under 300 yards of total offense per game. But they'll face one of the conference's most efficient quarterbacks in their Week 11 matchup. In fact, both teams have quarterbacks who have been great at protecting the football this season. St. Francis quarterback Bear Fenimore with an NEC-leading 19 touchdown passes to only 3 interceptions. CCSU senior Jacob Dogala also picked off only 3 times this year, 11 touchdown passes, and a league-leading 64.3% completion rate. Now, Dogala is also making his way up the NEC's all-time career passing leaderboard. Should he throw for just 55 yards on Saturday, he would move past Monmouth alumnus Brian Boland into 5th place in conference annals. St. Francis also has an NEC leader moving up the all-time charts. Senior receiver Cameron Lewis with 3,188 career receiving yards to his credit. With 19 yards on Saturday, he would move past former All-American Tyler Doobie into 3rd place on the conference's all-time record book. Checking in on the NEC stock market, I'll tell you whose value is on the way up. Chris Adjemang's stock exploded earlier this season. The Sacred Heart defensive end, he made 10 appearances as a sophomore, totaling only 9 tackles. He earned his way into the opening day starting lineup in 2018, and he proceeded to rack up 7.5 tackles for loss over the season's first 3 appearances. After the fast start, Adjemang's numbers hit a little bit of a mid-season lull, but they've bounced back in a big way. He ranks amongst the nation's top 20 leaders in TFL. His team is 4-0 in the NEC. His name is Chris Adjemang, and his stock is on the way up. I'm calling the Twitter timeout, taking a look at the tweet sheet. This one from Duquesne head coach Jerry Schmidt. The Dukes made the trip from the Steel City to New York City last week, and a large contingent of fans followed. As you can see, Schmidt was overwhelmed by the support that his team received on Staten Island in Week 10, and those fans in attendance were treated to a 47-30 victory that kept Duquesne within striking distance of first-place Sacred Heart. Now, Duquesne fans have made a habit of traveling well this season. A number of folks joined the team on its Hawaiian excursion back in September. Fast forward to November, and they were there again, rooting their Dukes on to victory at Wagner. From Hawaii to NYC, there's no doubt that Dukes fans have come out to support their squad this year. Hut, Blue 42, Hut, Omaha. It's time for the NEC Audible. This week's soundbite comes courtesy of St. Francis head coach Chris Valerio, because he, like we, witnessed a rather impressive all-around performance from Nick RINELLA in Week 10. RINELLA made an impact in all 3 phases of the game during St. Francis's 27-14 triumph over Bryant. Primarily used as a defensive back and a kick returner, RINELLA made his way into the offensive backfield, where he scored a 19-yard touchdown on a run play in the first quarter. Late in the opening half, he broke free for a 69-yard kickoff return to set up another red flash score. And then on defense, all he did was make 10 tackles and intercept a pass. Needless to say, Valerio loves what he's seeing with the emergence of Nick RINELLA.
Nick's been a blessing to us. He's taken advantage of every skill set he has, and he's worked at it. And it's a great thing to see a young man come in here and take advantage of a situation, step into a position of leadership, doing a tremendous job.
That's amazing, bro. What has me in a state of amazement this week? Well, Nick RINELLA has something to do with it because it's the SFU special teams as a whole. St. Francis has the NEC individual leaders in place kicking, punting, and returning. We'll start in the return game with RINELLA, of course. He averages 15.3 yards per punt return. That's first in the NEC. When it comes to combined kick returns, kickoffs, and punts, RINELLA has logged 760 return yards this season. That's fifth overall in the football championship subdivision. Now, from the return game to the punting unit, St. Francis's Andrew ZECCA averages more than 42 yards per punt. That leads the entire conference. He's placed 13 of 33 kicks inside the opponent's 20-yard line. He showed off his big boot in a big way last week. 72-yard punt, the longest in the league this season. He also has the ability to hang it up there. Red Flash, #1 overall in net punting this season, and ZECCA has a lot to do with it. As for place kicking, Eric BOFENKAMP is a perfect 31 for 31 on extra point attempts. And as for field goals, he has the highest success rate in the NEC. BOFENKAMP has made a league-leading 12 field goals this season, only 3 misses. St. Francis special teams leading the league in punting, place kicking, and returning. Stats amazing. Dropping a little more knowledge on you before we close out today's show. It's time for the Did You Know? Did you know Duquesne has finished no lower than second place in the NEC standings in each of the past 3 seasons? The Dukes, who are still very much alive in this year's title race, have earned 4 shares of the conference crown since 2011. In 2015, they won their lone outright NEC title and secured the FCS playoff bid that comes along with it. With 2 games to go on the 2018 slate, the Dukes sit second, 1 game behind first place Sacred Heart, and as you know, those 2 teams will square off this week on Rooney Field, one of 3 NEC contests on the Week 11 docket, 1 non-conference game. 2 of the 3 games will be carried live by Front Row. Of course, Central and St. Francis in the featured game of the week on ESPN3. You can catch that one at noon Eastern Time. Paul Dottino, Kevin Gilbride, John Schmelk on the call. As for the Week 11 edition of the Whole 9 Yards, that'll do it. I'm Ralph Ventre. Thank you for watching. I'll see you again next week.
I'm Chris Tingham from Central Connecticut State, and thank you for watching this edition of the Whole 9 Yards.